Oh, okay. So hello, it's 10 o'clock. I think I have to hit.
Can we wave?
Got it. Or, oh no, we're fine. We're fine. We're good.
Wave to everyone?
We can wave to everyone. We are in the hi. We only have just us. We don't have anyone joining us.
So we're waving to ourselves.
We're waving to ourselves.
Why not?
At some point, yeah, we'll see what's going on here. Hello and welcome. Great to be here with everyone this fine morning. So we're continuing our learning in the on the topic of the book of Genesis, making our way through the book of Genesis. So we will start this week at the beginning of Parshat Vayetze, which is page 166 in the Eighth Time, also known as Genesis chapter 28, verse 10. If you're following along in a different book, which is also great. And as we're finding that page number, so page 166 in the Eighth Time, also known as Genesis chapter 28, verse 10, I want to do some looking ahead to where we're going and how this class is going to eventually conclude. Not really soon, but sooner than one would think. So we have holidays coming up. We have Purim, we have Pesach, and then the goal for this class was to conclude sometime around Memorial Day, Shavuot-ish. And so here's what we're looking at. And this is like late breaking news. We'll have this will come out in an email at sometime this week, but we do have 6 more sessions of this class, including today. It's going to be, you don't have to write these down because we'll send them to you soon, but just so you know, March 10th and 31st, April 14th and 28th, and March 12th and March 19th. So we will meet on Mother's Day, but we will have our last meeting of this book of Genesis class the Sunday before Memorial Day weekend. So any questions on that schedule? And the other thing which is cool about that is that, so we have 6 more parshas left in the book of Genesis. We have 6 more classes. So that'll kind of be our pacing. We'll aim to cover 1 parsha per class. And this is where I think that the beginning of the book of Genesis, the parshas that we've already reviewed, are really awesome because they talk about things like the creation of the world, the Tower of Babel, Cain and Abel, these stories that, oh, they're so welcome. we review, but now that we're getting into, and this parsha starts with Jacob. So we have Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Jacob is technically the youngest generation of our 3 patriarchs, and he has a bunch of kids. As we know, and this is where the Jewish family kind of expands to become a tribe. And as we all know, more people, more relationships, more conversations, more drama. And so we are definitely getting into the second half of the book of Genesis, which I mean, like, you know, Sarah and Hagar, Ishmael and Isaac, like we've had some drama, but now we have like drama with these 12 brothers and their 1 sister. And so we're gonna start that now. All right, you ready? Mostly. Okay, great. So there are in the Eighth Time, there's this outline that it has, which is part of the above the line commentary, which is always helpful for reviewing the overview of what's going on in the parsha. So there are 4 main points that are highlighted by this outline. So we have on page 166 Jacob's encounter with God, also known as Jacob's ladder. Then we move on to, on page 169, we have Jacob's marriages, that's plural. Interestingness will ensue. Then continuing on, page 173, we have the birth of Jacob's children. The births of Jacob, there's a lot of them, so it's going to be super interesting. And then at the very last part of the parsha, and we'll see how much time we have for this, Jacob and Laban, the finale, which is on page 180. So we have these 4 sections: Jacob's ladder, Jacob's marriages, Jacob's children, and Jacob and Laban, the finale. So let's rewind back to the very beginning of the parsha, page 166. And so Jacob's ladder, this is one of those stories that has a lot of different interpretations. So let's read it inside, as they say. All right, chapter 28, verse 10. Jacob left Beersheba, or Beersheba, and set out for Haran. He came upon a certain place and stopped there for the night, for the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of that place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. He had a dream. A stairway was set on the ground and its top reached to the sky, and angels of God were going up and down on it. And the Lord was standing beside him, and he said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. The ground on which you are lying I will assign to you and to your offspring. Your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. You shall spread out to the west, and to the east, to the north, and to the south. Okay, so let's take a quick detour into the Hebrew right here, because we have confused people outside. Hello.
I don't know if I can answer this.
Okay, Beth is going to save the day, and if my assistance is requested to also save the day. Ooh,
What happened?
Someone have like a wheelchair ramp moment.
Someone ran over a ramp. Somebody from the church.
Oh yeah, she's got a motorized wheelchair.
Yeah.
She came in just
I saw
before me.
somebody
This
out
woman
there with that.
came with access.
And where's she trying to go?
Okay.
And she said they ran over
No,
the
I think
ramp,
they
but
ran over the ramp.
So she was
There's
What
an
happened?
elevator.
Someone
Does it
ran
work?
over the ramp.
What do you mean ran over it?
I think when it was out.
It's broke?
I'm guessing.
What kind of a ramp is it?
But isn't there
Or is it
another
in her
ramp
truck,
going
the
on?
ramp in her
I
truck?
think
So
we'll
it's that program.
see if we can continue for now. Here we go. Okay, so yes, so this is what I was going to say. Verse 14. So here we go. Ufa rasta, ufa rasta, ufa rasta, ufa rasta, yama vekedma, sefona vaneba. Ufa rasta, ufa rasta, yama vekedma, sefona vaneba. Ufa rasta, yama vekedma. I mean, we can continue, but so this is where it comes from. Isn't that great? I love that.
I never knew that.
I never knew.
I
I thought it
Now
was
you
a
do.
song. He told us so much fun. Look at that. So here it is. This is where it comes from.
That's why.
Yes. That's why we do this. So your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. You shall spread out Yama v'kedma, Tzafona v'negba. All the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you and your descendants. Remember, I am with you. I will protect you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is present in this place, and I did not know it. Shaken, he said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the abode of God, and that is the gateway to heaven.
Wow.
Early in the morning, Jacob took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on the top of it. He named the site Bethel, but previously the name of the city had been Luz. Jacob then made a vow, saying, if God remains with me, if he protects me on this journey that I am making, and gives me bread to eat and clothing to wear, and if I return safe to my father's house, the Lord shall be my God. And this stone which I have set up as a pillar shall be God's abode, and of all that you give me, I will set aside a tithe for you. That is quite the story. What are our thoughts?
Wow, it's a lot.
You set up a tithe.
He set up a tithe, and so this is sort of what's interesting. I feel like about Jacob and about this last section of the story. Jacob's like, if God does these things for me, then I will do this thing for God.
But he's not saying that God has to give it to him. I think he's implying that if he allows me to be able to earn the or work toward clothing and food, I think some people might see this as God's going to give it to me, and others that in other words, he's going to. It's. I think it's very ambiguous here, because God's not going to give him the bread. God's going to allow him to earn that, to work toward it.
So we're seeing a little.
He's going to see him
God and
that he's going to be able to work to get that food and get that clothing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wait. Yes, and then yes. Great.
So in 21, yeah. The Lord shall be my God if I return safe. Wasn't he his God before?
Ooh, that's a good question.
That's a good
question.
What's the difference between that?
Well, it's sort of, I don't know. I guess I'm still very,
Wow,
you know,
that's interesting.
reflecting on this whole Lucy Dewar experience that we had yesterday. We started to use the Lucy Dewar. And so perhaps this moment where now Jacob has left his parents' house. He is on the run from his brother who's trying to kill him, which is not, you know, it's there's also that. But Jacob is kind of stepping into his adulthood for the first time. And so
Right.
maybe, you know, maybe he's saying like, this is renewing
Right.
it's not just my parents' God, it's going to be my God personally.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because up until now, his parents, you know, when we think of parents, remember parents are in place of, it's like in when you're a teacher, you're in local parentis. And that's why you may never leave in an emergency. A teacher may never leave campus.
That's what I meant, yes.
They must stay on campus in an emergency.
Right.
And parents are the parentis.
Right.
They
Absolutely.
are there.
Yes.
So he hasn't thought about who's taking care of him. His parents have taken care of him.
Absolutely. He's taking care of himself now. So but you want to finish what you're saying and then back to you. Yes.
Do we have any idea how old he is at this point?
Do we have?
Because Howard and I were both saying it's like his bar mitzvah.
Okay, and I was just thinking about, he's kind of like in puberty. I have a grandson who just was, he's now, I see him transitioning from being a kid. He was a kid. You see him, every time I see him, he's grown and he's different and he's more mature. So I keep looking at this in terms of thinking, that's what puberty is, but he's questioning a lot of that stuff.
So I think this is what I found so far on page 166 in the eighth column. We have the note 13 of the very bottom of the page, and it reads, we can speculate that Jacob was a frightened young man, away from home for the first time and embarrassed by the circumstances that forced him to leave, which is kind of what we just said. So I'm sure that there's like rabbi math somewhere that is like, he's exactly 27 and a half years old, and here's why. You know, I would have to go digging through the midrash to find that, but I think that he's definitely, well, if we turn back to the end of the last parsha, it could be a late bloomer. Yeah, I think that, I don't know, in terms of like a chronological age, that is less clear, but this is definitely the case that he is taking care of himself for the first time in a way that he hasn't before. And he, you know, and it's like there's the archetype of like the vision quest, you know, like, and from different cultures. And so now this is like, he's in the wilderness, he's by himself, he's sleeping outside, you know, like, whoa, what's happening here? So,
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a much simpler version of this.
Oh, I love
So
that.
my
yeah.
brain doesn't go deeply into it. But
All
it's
kinds
more,
of brains.
for me, it's more like, I'm going to go to the grocery and then I'm going to go to the drugstore and then I'm going to go to their place. When I get back, I'm going to give you the cookie. You know, that not that he was expecting anything from all of these things that needed doing. He was going to do all of these things, and then even, you know, now I'm going to think about it. You know, maybe now you'll be my God. You know, after I can do the things that I need to do to run my life.
Interesting. So it's sort of like, here I am starting my life. I'm about to launch. If I successfully launch, then I'll know that God's with me and we're a team here.
Right.
Oh, I love that. Yes, please.
Oh, I was noticing that in like two translations.
Yes.
That one of them said he woke up shaken, which is a milder word than the other translation, which says he woke up frightened.
Yes.
That was the first thing I noticed.
Yes, definitely.
And also, the way I read it is, God isn't saying, if you do these things for me, I will be your God. God is saying, I'm doing these things for you. There's no conditions here.
And so God,
there's no conditions.
God is making the promise without conditions.
Without conditions.
Verses
So
13 through 15.
Yeah, these are without conditions, except that I'll do what I have already promised. And then Jacob wakes up and is kind of like when you said, isn't God already his God? We all have these times when we're kind of reinforced, you know? And so Jacob wakes up and goes, wow, this really is God's place. I'm going to go and do these things. And like, then it's going to prove it to me even more. You know, once this all really happens and I'm safe, that's going to really even prove it to me.
Reinforce
And I'm
it.
gonna, from now on really believe,
Yeah.
and do this.
No, that's a
But
good
the
point,
shaken
yeah.
and the frightened are different.
Well, let's actually answer that question second, because I think the first one is probably an easier question, or just easier to address here. So that God is making promises without condition, is saying like, I am your God.
Yeah.
This is what I'm
Dust
going to
of the
do for
earth,
you.
you're gonna have descent, all this.
Absolutely. And so
I'll protect you.
And so, yeah, exactly. And so Jacob's saying, like, if these good things happen to me, then God will be my God. It's sort of like, God, I'm hearing what you're promising. Once you come through, then it'll be official. So kind of like that. And it's interesting that that Jacob accepting basically God's offer,
he heard it. He heard it.
Right.
That's why he's shaken or frightened.
Right. So let's come back to that word. So this is why it's always great to look at the Hebrew. And yes, vayira. And so this yare, that shoresh, is kind of, I don't know, it's a word that I feel like the conservative movement has trouble translating this word, because what it really means is afraid. But there are different kinds of afraid, right? There's afraid, the pachad, and there's afraid, and there's VRA. And so this is kind of like a fear that goes along with awe. I feel like the most common translation for this shoresh in the conservative movement is awe, as in the days of awe. Yamim noraim. So vayira, yamim noraim. That's the same word. It's the same shoresh. So when you come to shul on the high holidays, you're like,
something is so big that you're
exactly
overwhelmed. And
yes, and I guess, we were talking about anti-Semitism before the class started. And so you're coming to synagogue on the high holidays, there's being afraid of an anti-Semitic attack. That's one type of fear. And then there's being afraid because you're standing in the presence of God and reflecting on your life. And so those are, sadly, these are all too real, right?
One is danger and one is
like the amazingness of it all. It's so big. Exactly. Overwhelm. I think that there's more of a connotation of that. Yeah.
Well, under the
line. Hold on a second, Jonathan.
So I think that take is emphasized by the fact that right after it says vayira vayomar manora, how awesome. So it's a fear of awe.
Definitely.
Or something along those lines.
Absolutely.
Enormity.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So he's not afraid as in afraid for his life. He's afraid as in like, whoa, I'm in the wilderness, I'm encountering God. This is almost too big for me to understand. That sort of thing. Yes.
So I don't see it here, but I understand there's tradition, thought that the place where Isaac was almost sacrificed and this place and where the temple stood are all the same place.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Which is sort of awesome. It's
absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's possible.
Yes.
So
yes. Absolutely. And this is kind of back to the theme that we've kind of touched upon at various points in this course of learning, that like we have different ways of understanding the Torah, and one is like the historical archaeological, and then one's the midrashic, and then one's like the literary. And so I think that I appreciate your bringing up this idea of there is an actual place where all of these things actually happen, and it's a place that exists. It's not some sort of imagination, even though this is not precisely a historical document, which we love. Yes, and then back to Diane. Yes.
We were in Israel the first time, I think around 1969, 1970, 71. We were able to go into the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Oh, wow.
And there was a large... there was a large boulder, and we were told that's where Jacob.
Wow.
And that's where
the Dome of the Rock.
It's the Dome of the Rock, and so you see, it's large.
That's supposed to be the rock that he laid his head on.
Well, it's the rock where where the sacrifice didn't take place.
For the Isaac, not Jacob.
But then it could.
Yeah, it's very beautiful.
It could also be the general location where this.
Right.
Right.
So
isn't it where the temple was too?
Right, pretty sure.
Definitely, it's with a big sign. I don't know what it says now, but Jews do not enter here. But
or maybe where the Holy
Wow.
was.
No, I
Yeah,
got
it's
answers.
some
And
part of
there
that.
was-
Mhm.
Well, that's consistent with the
99,
last
I got
going.
99. Did I say 99?
No, you said 69,
Oh,
but I
that's
got
good.
to 99, I got that.
Well, they didn't change the
Yeah.
sign.
So Dan, did you want to say something and then Helen
Yeah, I
after
just
that?
was gonna say that the editors of the Eschim
Mhm.
below the line
Mhm, mhm.
emphasize the awesomeness in their definition of shaken.
Ooh, I love
And
it.
it
Oh,
says
17.
Yeah, here it is.
No, below.
that it was
Oh, I see,
truly
right.
Sorry, you're right.
soul shattering.
Above the end.
I mean, nothing could be more
I'm so grateful.
awesome than soul shattering.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
they're actually defining it. I mean, they do it above the line by just saying that he was profoundly affected. But here they're saying that Jacob's response here reminds us that to truly encounter God in our lives is a soul shattering experience.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we are shaken to the core of our souls, and we are never the same person afterwards.
Yeah, and I love that you pointed this out because we in this example in the Eighth Time we have two different commentaries on the exact same word, and the way that the commentary speaks to the text is similar. Like obviously they're talking about the same thing from a similar perspective, but they're wording it in a different way. And this is why we learn with multiple commentaries, because not one commentary might speak to one person, another commentary might speak to another person, and then the commentaries are in dialogue with each other, as they're saying similar but different things about the same word or the same verse.
But they say that it changes him from a frightened young man to a man prepared to take responsibility for his life.
Absolutely. Back to Howard.
Well, I was just following up on the discussion about the location and the story about being where the temple is now. If you look at the last verse of chapter 28.
So we're fast forwarding now to, okay, so this is the last line of the story that we just read, chapter 28, verse 22.
It says, this place shall be, in the Eschim it says, shall be God's abode.
Hey.
And in the altar it says, will be a house of God. And actually there's a little bit of difference there because will be a house of God sort of intimates that there will be more than one. The Eschim seems to indicate that it's unique in the soul abode.
But so Beit Elohim, well, Ha'even hazot asher samti matzeva yeh Beit Elohim. Well, but let me try that again with the accent on the right syllable. Ha'even hazot asher samti matzeva yeh Beit Elohim. So this stone that I have placed as a monument, it will be a house of God. So I think it doesn't, I don't think the Hebrew implies either there's only one or there are multiple. I think it's a little bit more because Beit Elohim.
Which is why you get two different translations to that effect.
Absolutely.
But that's still the basic point is that ties into the concept of going back historically and saying this is the location, this is where Isaac was to be sacrificed, this is where the pillar of Jacob is, this is where the temple should be. It all comes back and unifies the concept.
Definitely. I think that definitely makes sense from this sentence. Absolutely. Yes.
Can we go back to shaken for a second?
Sure. Absolutely.
Are there other references or other uses of that particular word in the Torah? And does that connect with the Christian groups? There's a group like the Quakers, and I don't know, and the Shakers, seriously, because the idea here is not just you're moving, but it's having the wonder and awe of God in your life that brings that on. So do you know anything about that?
Well, so in terms of the Christian traditions, I am not familiar with either the Quakers or the Shakers other than having heard of them before. And I had one friend in college who went to a Quaker school, but that isn't really an education of what it means to be Quaker.
Right.
So this is definitely find outable. This is find outable, learnable, and discoverable. But in terms of this word, I would say that this word is the shoresh yud resh aleph is a very common shoresh. I would need my concordance, which is in my office. I could go get it and look up. I'm sure that there are multiple many ways that this could appear, or many locations that this appears in Tanakh. It is a common word. It's not like there are some words that only show up once, and we don't really know what they mean. But this word shows up a lot, and we do know what it means.
But does it show up with a reference to feeling God's presence?
Definitely. That's why the high holidays are called the Yamim Noraim.
Right. Okay. So maybe that has some.
Definitely.
All right, we'll have to look this up.
Yeah, and so we can definitely investigate this with the concordance at a little bit of a different time. I do want to start, and was there another question that I also, this is what I was thinking. So in terms of like the shaking and the fear of God and the piety, this is the Haredim. So that harad is a different shoresh that refers to that same sort of like, it's not, the same shoresh that we were just talking about, but it's a shoresh, it's a word that refers to like that, like I'm so afraid of God that like I'm shaking. And so the ultra-Orthodox Haredim, that is a word that refers to not yirah, but a different type of fear and awe.
Okay.
So,
but it is God related.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to move to the next chapter of the story, so to speak. That we're moving to a new chapter, literally. So Jacob's marriages. Oh my gosh, he accidentally marries two people who happen to be sisters. What could possibly go wrong? So let's just skip through this. We're going to get like little pieces of this one. Okay, chapter 29, verse 11, which is on page 170 in Eitz Chaim. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and broke into tears. Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman and that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. On hearing the news of his sister's son Jacob, Laban ran to greet him. He embraced him and kissed him and took him into his house. Wow, this is so great. Jacob and Rachel, kind of love at first sight situation. We're all cousins or something. It's great. I do have a family tree. I brought a family tree so we can talk about the details of this. But so it seems like everything's great. Okay, but things get a little bit more complicated. Top of page 171, which is the middle of verse 14 in chapter 29 of Genesis. When he had stayed with him a month's time, Laban said to Jacob, just because you are a kinsman, should you serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be? Now Laban had two daughters. The name of the older one was Leah. The name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes. Rachel was shapely and beautiful. Jacob loved Rachel, so he answered, I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter, Rachel. Very specific there. Laban said, better that I give her to you than that I should give her to an outsider. Stay with me. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of his love for her. Hashtag romantic. We love this. Okay. But then things take a turn. Then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife, for my time is fulfilled, that I may cohabit with her. And Laban gathered all the people of the place, made a feast. When evening came, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to him, and he cohabited with her. Somehow he didn't catch that there was something up. Laban had given,
that's why we do the thing.
That's why we do the thing. There are midrashim on that. Yes, exactly. Laban had given his maidservant Zilpah to his daughter Leah as her maid. So that there in the Eitz Chaim, there are little dashes, to kind of indicate that this statement that Zilpah is the maidservant of Leah, that's a little bit of an aside, but we're setting up teams. We're setting up teams in the game of who can be the procreation, who can be the most fertile. We've got two teams here, and so one team is Leah and Zilpah. And spoiler alert, they win by a lot. When morning came, there was Leah. So he said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? I was in your service for Rachel. Why did you deceive me? Laban said, it's not the practice in our place to marry off the younger one before the older.
Oh my God, he had 7 years to say that? 7 years to say
that? So wait until the bridal week of this one is over and we will give you that one too, provided you serve me another 7 years. Wow. Jacob did so. He waited out the bridal week of the one, and then he gave him his daughter Rachel as wife. So we have team number 2. Laban had given his maidservant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her maid. And Jacob cohabited with Rachel also. Indeed, he loved Rachel more than Leah, and he served him another 7 years. Yes.
So wait a minute. I always thought he had to work another 7 years before he got Rachel.
No,
he did. He got her a week later. And then he worked for 7 years.
Yes, yeah. He received up front and paid later.
Okay. Because they always say he worked for 7 years.
Right.
And then I also always thought that it was part of the story that Leah was covered.
There they go.
No.
but it's actually not stated.
Well, that's okay. So hold on a second.
It was dark.
Where did it go?
No stars in the
Very
sky.
dark.
No ambient light.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so page 172, the note above the line on verse 23. So the Gibor Maskil, the beginning where he took his daughter Leah. Okay, this is intelligible only if Leah wore a veil. In the ancient Near East, the bride was indeed veiled when presented to her husband.
Okay. It's just not said there. Yeah.
And it's interesting that it's translated that she can't see. You know, that she had weak eyes.
Oh, that Leah has the weak eyes.
And so maybe she didn't realize what was going on.
No, it says, the footnote says it means that she didn't have bright eyes. She didn't have an alluring look.
Okay. Different translation.
Yeah, so
it's the footnote.
So yeah, so on page 171, footnote on verse 17, weak eyes, this does not describe poor vision, but eyes lacking in luster or lacking in tenderness and sensitivity. So section 17, Leah had weak eyes, Rachel was shapely and beautiful. Basically, there were two sisters, the pretty one and the ugly one.
Oh.
That's what we're getting at.
That's hard.
Wow.
It is. That's why I didn't say it like that. But that's what. Yeah. Weak eyes is like.
Maybe Leah
You needed weak eyes.
Yeah.
So the most amazing thing to me about this story is that he's lived with them for 7 years. And he didn't recognize it was with a different woman. I mean, like, haven't you talked to them? And,
Well, that's shapely and beautiful.
And okay, it's nice, but you know, and you know, he's with her in a wedding night,
right?
And and only in the morning, according to the narrative, right? Well, only in the morning he notices it's not the one he thought it was.
A lot of focus on one thing.
No,
right. If he had too much wine, he wasn't going to.
Well, it's anyway. Kind of maybe this is what is already being said. I didn't quite pick it up, but there, you know, we had the story a couple of parshes ago about like the daughter sleeping with the father, and it was like he got really drunk and it happened, you know, and so it was sort of, you know, these. Well, let's look at this actually. Where did it go?
And maybe Leah didn't want
hold on. Okay, page 172, below the line, footnote 25. Thanks for everyone for being patient with me. You're friends at time a lot. But so a rabbinic midrash tells of Jacob and Rachel devising a code to make sure that the deceitful Laban could not substitute Leah for Rachel. But on the wedding night, Rachel, feeling compassion for Leah and not wanting her to be shamed, shares the code with her sister.
Wow.
As a result, Jacob is deceived in the darkness, even as his father Isaac had been fooled in his blindness. So this is a midrash, but it's not a midrash that is like in some collection of midrashim that we sort of have some of it. This is in the Talmud. It's in Masechet Megillah, page 13b. And there of all of the midrashim that we have, some of them end up in the Talmud. And the fact that this one is from the Talmud, this idea is from the Talmud, means that this explanation of how this could have possibly happened is has received support over the generations. Yes, and then yes, great. Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. Also, I don't know. I don't remember. This is not common, I don't think, in the Torah. This exclamation mark that is in both of my translations. In the morning, there was Leah. This explanation, like there's a storyteller here. Yeah. You know, like you're reading to your kids at night. You know, like who's the author here of this particular thing? You know, right? Well, I mean, and it's in both of them.
It's pretty shocking, and so but that's sort of like we have the tradition of the trope and how it's read out loud, and so that's kind of like what
How often do we see that in our Torah? Well, in our translations, that's not in the Hebrew for sure.
Right. There are no there aren't any punctuation marks at all in Torah. Right. But so just the first 4 words of sentence 25, Vayihi vaboker, v'hinei hu Leah. So it's like, and it was in the morning, and behold, it was Leah, or he Leah. Behold, it was Leah. So that that word hine, Vayihi vaboker, it's like, okay, v'hinei hu he Leah is like, hine is kind of like an exclamation point, I would say, not but not necessarily, but perhaps. But so Vayomer Elavan, Mazot asita li. What did you do to me? You know, which you could say, what did you do to me? but you'd probably say, what did you do to me? If you were going to use those words. And then you, halo Rachel avadati imach, valama rumitani. So that hey before lo, making the word halo, it is sort of, it's interrogative, but it's also emphatic. So like, halo barachel avadati, like, didn't I work for 7 years for this one daughter? And so that's another indication of the emphasis in that passage.
Is he saying it to Leah, or is he saying it to Laban?
He's saying
or
it
is
to
he
Laban.
saying it to Rachel?
He's saying it to Laban.
Because
it says in 7:25, he said it to Laban.
Yeah,
But
well,
I
except
with Rachel
if they had a secret code.
Because she shared the code.
The secret code didn't work.
Another thing, yes, and then yes.
There's another Midrash story in this book.
Oh, go for it.
I'll summarize it. It says,
and which is that book first again?
This is the Altar, Robert Altar.
Robert Altar.
Yes. So summarizing, Jacob says to Leah, why did you deceive me? Didn't I call out Rachel in the night and you answered me? And she replies, isn't this how your father cried out Esau and you answered him?
Yes, that's very good. Brings it right back. You were deceived.
Wait, so where's
that?
What goes around
below the
comes
line,
Right. That
says,
should be the whole message.
I've heard story of younger siblings rushing ahead of older
But that
ones. We don't do that here. Jacob has just learned why it was wrong for him to deceive his father. So it like kind of like you were a liar. You were like you got what was coming to you. See,
right?
You can't
below the line. Oh yeah.
You did this and you didn't trust. Now there's no trust.
And I love how it's like
Interesting.
Rather
we don't like being reminded how to deceive our.
I don't. Maybe it's just because I'm a millennial, but like people will talk about karma.
Yes,
karma. Like, karma.
You're right.
Karma's a this and that, whatever. Okay, but so rather than moralize, the Torah lets Jacob discover that people who give themselves permission to lie and cheat find themselves in a world where no one can be trusted. And so this is sort of, maybe people would say karma, but I feel like the early childhood educators among us, but what are the natural consequences? That's what it's called. Like it's like if you don't wash your hands, then you'll have dirty hands and you might get sick, or you might make the paint mess go like on your other stuff in your nice stuffed animal or whatever.
You're not nice. No one's gonna want to play with you.
If you're not nice.
Right, you're gonna be by yourself.
Exactly.
Being nice is the best, right?
Right.
That's it.
Does it work?
cheat
That's
and
a
you will be
natural-
cheated upon.
Cheated and you're
but
in
does it
that
work?
world. You're
With 5-year-olds?
No, I'm just saying,
no, but if you cheat,
Try 3 and 4.
Does it?
Wait, hold on.
What does it?
Yes,
they
we're gonna
don't
say.
cheat.
I just want, and I can't
Really,
find
because they
anymore
don't-
that one of the translations for the name
5-year-olds
is cow to cheat.
Ah,
And I think that's just an insult to this poor young woman.
right.
You know, they think she's not pretty, she has no sparkle, and she's a cow. And I'm very insulted because my grandmother was named Leah. Where is it? I can't find it.
below.
I saw it.
You saw it.
Yes, I
171.
I know what you
Just
mean.
above the line.
171.
Yeah, it's somewhere.
16.
Well,
Oh,
right.
here it's on.
So here
Yeah,
it is.
171.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
it says the
Number
name made me
16.
cow
Well,
or
so
weak.
I think the thing about Leah and Rachel, and I guess one of the reasons why I love this parsha and this story is that it's so complicated that both of these sisters end up living like pretty tragic lives, and Jacob kind of does too, and I think we'll get to that in the future parsha about Jacob, but it's so we have on page 171, chapter 29, verse 17, we're describing these two sisters, and there's like the pretty one and the ugly one, and that's kind of, we're being a little bit lashon nikiya, we're being a little bit polite about it, but where the truth is there was the pretty one and the ugly one, and that's how it was. Now it's I read this commentary a few months ago when it was this parsha this past year about how Leah is the unloved wife, and that's kind of like she's this archetype, and it's sort of like this, there in humanity, this idea of the unloved wife is like something that happens. It's something that comes up in story. That's something that we experience sometimes in our own family, sometimes with our friends. Like the marriage, this is just how it is. And I think that why that commentary that I read, it was by a rabbi from Israel who I can't remember her name right now. I'll have to bring it. It is like, yeah, sometimes life is tragic, but now what? You know, how can we make the most of it? And here, let's actually skip to another. This is okay.
They just need to give Leia some makeup.
I told you, Estee Lauder. She needed Estee
No, I mean,
Lauder.
it's just when they said she has weak eyes, so Leia was shapely and beautiful. That offends me.
Yeah.
It offends me because I don't. Leia's eyes, but they may not have been full of passion. I could have done a lot with Leia.
I feel more like Leia's the undesirable one, and Jacob, I mean, her father,
Laban.
yeah, you know, there weren't people that wanted to marry her. So not only was there the custom of, I guess, marrying the elder one,
Taming of the
but
shrew.
we need to marry Leia off anyway. You know?
But it's
and he loved Rachel. It doesn't, you know, whether
she's
she's pretty or not, she's the one that he loved.
Because she was
So
well, here's the thing. These are
And
very touchy topics that you know we all deal with and have dealt with in our lives, and maybe we dealt with them personally, and our friends, and maybe our children, or have also, you know. But we all know that some people have a harder time finding a partner than others.
Yes.
And it's like one of the things that is like most deeply unfair about reality, when you have someone in your life that you're like, wow, this person is so great, and I just want them to find their shared, their beloved, and they can't do it. It's heartbreaking. And when it happens to us ourselves, that's also heartbreaking, you know. But so here's so Leia finds her husband, right, in life. It's not a happy situation. So page 172, let's just look at this for a second. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page now. Oh, page 174. Okay. So no, actually, let's rewind back to 173. Thanks for the patience here. So chapter 29, verse 31. The Lord saw that Leah was unloved, and he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Okay, so now we have like another thing that's unfair. God's like, well, we got the pretty one and the ugly one. You know, the ugly one is unloved, and so I'll give her children. But the pretty one, I'm gonna keep. You know, I'm not gonna give her children right now.
She's gonna struggle.
She's gonna, because everyone's got their struggle, right? Leah conceived and bore a son and named him Reuben, for she declared, it means the Lord has seen my affliction, and it also means now my husband will love me. She conceived again and bore a son and declared, this is because the Lord heard that I was unloved and has given me this one also. So she named him Shimon, Simeon. Again, she conceived and bore a son and declared, this time my husband will become attached to me, for I have borne him 3 sons.
Wow.
Therefore he was named Levi. She conceived again and bore a son and declared, this time I will praise the Lord.
It took her a long time.
Yeah,
to praise the Lord.
Right. Therefore she named him Judah. Yehuda were called Yehudim. And this Shoresh, Yehuda, goes along with the word Hoda'ah, which is gratitude. So Leah is in this terrible situation, and in like she's winning the important game of reproduction, which is sort of like, you know, when you have like,
or she's desperate.
Well, I think that feeling of desperation can go along with actual material success, and that's basically the story of this family. Because I think that Jacob, as we'll continue to read about his story, he experiences a lot of material success. Right now, he's kind of like a little bit or a lot, or actually completely trapped by Laban. You know, he doesn't have his own money right now. He's you know, in a crazy conflict, trying to like be with the person that he said he was going to be able to marry. You know, so he's not really having a lot of success right now. But Leah is having a tremendous amount of success. And so back in their time, having a lot of kids was like having a lot of a big bank account and a huge retirement fund, and, you know, investments and stocks, and, you know, and so Leah, hugely successful, but she doesn't find that gratitude at first.
Yeah, what I meant was she's not gaining his love.
Correct.
She's gaining his bonding, you know, his appreciate. I can't think of the word what she's gaining. His attachment.
Right. Yeah. She's bearing him sons, which is an accomplishment for her, but it's also something good for him as well. You know, not quite in the same way. but that love isn't there. That's just not what their relationship is about. Yes.
I was thinking even earlier than this very discussion, look what happens or how her sons behave when we get later in the story. So, so maybe without love, they were missing that piece.
Without the love, they were. I would. That's such a beautiful explanation, and I think so. So when we have these, because it speaks to, and there are, as we continue with these parshas to the end of the book of Genesis, there is definitely these two teams. And so it speaks to the reason why there are these two teams. There's Team Rachel and Team Leah, and the brothers like have their alliances, you know, because like on the one hand, Leah's sons are the eldest sons. So right now, these four sons, Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda, are the four oldest sons. So not only does she have four sons, she has the four oldest sons. Yeah. So it's like, so, you know, they're, when these four sons grow up and then they have the younger siblings that are favored, you know, and it's like, whoa, but I've gained like 15, 20 years of life experience over this, you know, pipsqueak, like what gives, you know? And so that's sort of the family dynamics. So speak to exactly what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Anything else before we read a little bit more?
Yeah. I just feel like you're saying that they are unloved. It's not like, wow, here's my child. It's now my husband will love me. Like, I don't care about this child so much. I just care about like that rivalry almost, like now he'll love me. And then the next one is now this is because the Lord heard. And she conceived and declared, this time my husband will come attached to me. Like, it has nothing to do with the children.
She didn't parent them.
She didn't parent them.
She didn't parent them. She didn't.
And maybe that's why they became
and that was
terrible.
That was my
people.
sense. You know, it made me think of that.
So
she has no love. She gets no love.
As I'm hearing it, like because she didn't receive the love she was looking for from her husband, she wasn't able to pass it along to her children.
Exactly.
Maybe she didn't get love also because she wasn't so pretty. Maybe that's why no one.
She was available.
Well, she wasn't
modeling. Well, did I say I hand raise over here? Or, yes, go for it.
Just that the other day I was waiting in an office and there was a magazine about the royal family in England, the royal families, and it showed several different generations and their weddings, and then it showed these pictures of, you know, the little children, and it was just so much like this. You know, here's two sons, you know, that have been produced, and it's still kind of happening. Like, boy, what a relief and what perfection! Here, the woman has given him two sons, or a son and then a daughter, and so everything has been, you know. I can't think of the word, you know, but she accomplished what was needed for the package to be done.
Right,
you know, even though it's kind of out of her
next
control.
Generation.
Yeah, it's still happening today. That idea. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, so I'm conscious of the time. Let's see. Here we go. So let's look at All right, page 177, chapter 30, verse 20. Leah said, God has given me a choice gift. This time my husband will exalt me, for I have borne him 6 sons. So she named him Zebulun. Last, she bore him a daughter and named her Dinah. Now, God remembered Rachel. God heeded her and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away my disgrace. So she named him Joseph, which is to say, may the Lord add another son for me. So after Leah has 6 sons and a daughter, Rachel finally has 1 son for the first time. And actually, let's read the next sentence, 25 as well. After Rachel had born Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, give me leave to go back to my own homeland. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served you, that I may go, for well you know what services I have rendered you. Okay, so now that the loved wife, the favorite wife at Rachel, has born the son Joseph to the father Jacob, now it's like, okay, I'm ready to pack up and move out. You know, I've my not only is my family established, I have my favorite son from my favorite wife. I am ready to get out of here. Okay. So then let's actually skip ahead to.
And he has a few kids from Hagar, from the
Yeah.
maidservant Bilhah.
Yes. So each maidservant contributes
got
exactly
banned.
2 sons to the team. So Leah has the 6 sons, the 1 daughter, and then the 2 more sons from the handmaids. And Rachel, at this point in the story, has 1 son and two sons from the handmaid, and Benjamin isn't born yet.
Faithful contest I waged and I have prevailed.
Yes.
She says on 175.
Yes, if we if we had time to learn this entire story
So
in
where are you?
detail.
What page are you
So
on?
let's turn back.
I
for a
backed
moment.
up to when before Rachel had her own child. She had her maidservant
Right, exactly.
given to Jacob.
So
He's
the
having
4
fun.
so the 4 sons, exactly. Jacob is a very busy man.
Yeah.
So we got the 4 sons coming from Leah. Then Rachel is like, obviously I can't do this myself. Let's have my handmaid take care of the situation and produce some kids. So we have the 4 oldest kids being born to Leah. The 2 next ones being born to Bilhah, Rachel's maid. So technically now we've got like 4. Team Leah's got 4. Team Rachel's got 2. And then we continue. Then Leah is like, oh shoot, I don't want to lose my lead here. And so Zilpah bears 2 sons, Gad and Asher. And so we have 8 sons over here. We've only got 2 sons over here. Then Rachel is like, let me get some of these mandrakes, because obviously mandrakes now means sons soon. So that's like the medicine of the day or whatever. And so these are fertility treatments. And so Rachel is like, so Rachel's trying to get the fertility treatment. Leah is like, if you give me the fertility treatment, then I'll give you our husband, because obviously we have to share him. And so this is how this is all working out. Maybe I flipped those 2 names, but so there's a trade. There's a trade for fertility treatments, also known as mandrakes, and husband time. And then Leah bears a 5th son and a 6th son and a daughter. And so that's how we get to the final count on the Leah side of 8 sons plus 1 daughter. And now Rachel, and this is now reviewing the section that we just read, Rachel's got the 1 son from her now, who's Joseph, and then the 2 sons already from the handmaid. So this final score by the end of this parsha, 8 Leah, 3 Rachel. So Leah is in the lead by a lot.
But it says on 177 that Leah conceived and born a 6th son.
Yes.
And then has a daughter.
Correct.
So it's 7 to 3.
Well, so it's 6 sons, and
Right.
so obviously we're only really counting because that's how they did. But we got the 2 from the handmaid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Each,
Okay.
And so the it turns out
so it's
right.
9 to 3.
Well, the daughter counts in a different category.
No, 8 and a half.
It's like
and
a full
she's like a problem later
child,
on.
but there's no
We're not
tribe
even
of
counting
Dinah.
the daughter.
There's no tribe of Dinah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So Dinah is a child, but doesn't count in the same category as the sons. So let's see where
Reuben and Shimon are.
This is the part where I wanted to. Okay, let's actually skip ahead to this part. 1 second. Okay. Oh, I'm not finding it. Oh, here it is. Okay, page 184, chapter 31, verse 33. So this is, now we're skipping to the head, Jacob and Lavan, the finale. So Lavan does not let Jacob go. So Jacob packs up and sneaks out in the middle of the night, which, you got to do what you got to do. But Lavan is like, wait a second, I had this guy in my house who was helping me make a lot more money than I could make on my own. And he just left. I'm going to go chase after him. And so that's what happens. And so page 184, chapter 31, verse 33. So Lavan went into Jacob's tent and Leah's tent and the tents of the 2 maidservants, but he did not find them. Leaving Leah's tent, he entered Rachel's tent. Rachel, meanwhile, had taken the idols. Okay, so Rachel, being sneaky, because a lot of the people in the story are pretty sneaky, steals the household idols, which are important religious objects, not Jewish religious objects, but belonging to Laban, and placed them in the camel cushion and sat on them. And Laban rummaged through the tent without finding them. For she said to her father, let not my lord take it amiss that I cannot rise before you, for the period of women is upon me. Thus he searched, but could not find the household idols. So Rachel takes the stolen property, sits on it, and says, I can't get up because I'm having my period. And Laban is like, oh, I totally understand. I don't need to look where you're sitting. So she successfully steals the precious items by pretending that she's menstruating, and she just can't get up, which was totally successful in the context of this, which is fascinating. So
I've been using that as an excuse.
Okay. Oh, I missed the part that I was going to actually. Okay, so we got to turn back to chapter 31, verse 31, which is on the previous page 183. So actually, let's go 29 on page 183, chapter 31, verse 29. I have it in my power to do you harm, says Laban to Jacob, being threatening. But the God of your father said to me last night, beware of attempting anything with Jacob, good or bad. Very well, you had to leave because you were longing for your father's house, but why did you steal my gods? Why did you steal these household idols, these non-Jewish religious objects? Jacob answered Laban, saying, I was afraid because I thought you would take your daughters from me by force. And so now Jacob doesn't know that Rachel has the idols, and he says, but anyone with whom you find your God shall not remain alive. In the presence of our kinsmen, point out what I have yours and take it. Jacob, of course, did not know that Rachel had stolen them. So Laban doesn't get back his idols, but Jacob has accidentally cursed his beloved, which is really sad. It's heartbreaking. At least
Antigone.
Antigone.
It's the story of Antigone, isn't it?
It's the story of
I
can't say I'm as familiar with the story of Antigone.
I know Antigone.
Well, is it a curse, or is it saying, if I find a person who has stolen them, I'll kill them?
This has nothing to do with it.
Okay. I like that. So maybe the curse is only in effect if the household idols are found. If they're not found, then the person who stole them will not be cursed.
Who was it that they cursed?
Then she died.
But then she dies, but she doesn't die in this parsha. She doesn't die, but she does die soon, which is sad. Yes.
Can I just comment on how realistic Rachel's comment about not getting up when she had her period is? I think if you're a woman
in those days,
well,
or even now,
and sometimes you can get away with it. I was really sick with pain when I was clerking and had to go downtown and go to court. And I said, I can't do this. I couldn't think straight. And the lawyers for whom I was clerking said, too bad, you're going. And I did. But it's very realistic. I think all women could maybe, or maybe not. I don't know. But
so it's interesting. So this isn't the very end of the parsha, it's near the end of the parsha, but we'll kind of wrap it up here because we've done a little taste of Jacob's marriages, Jacob's children, Jacob and Laban, the finale. But so speaking about like this experience of menstruation, obviously it varies from person to person. Right. But I think it is fairly common for women to have an experience of menstruation that interferes with their ability to do normal things, at least sometimes.
Or she had a towel or something like that.
That's the other thing. Like what kind of technology do we have to manage the physical effects of this? But so the thing that I want to mention in terms of bring this like to a very contemporary context is that I don't know if any of you follow the Times of Israel Daily Briefing podcast. Oh yeah, I listen to that thing all the time. And so maybe it was last week sometime, they had a whole section on women's health for Israeli female soldiers in the IDF, and what if you're going to be in the battlefield for months at a time and you're a female, what are the unique things that you have to be concerned about, and what are and what do you do when you have your period, and what about certain types of infections, and you can't change your clothes and you can't shower necessarily on a regular basis, and they were even saying, which I thought was, I don't know, I was kind of surprised by this at first, but then it was sort of like, well, I guess it would make sense for some people. they were like, some of these soldiers, before they go in the field, if they go to their doctor and they get medication, so it delays their period for 3 months, so that they don't have to deal with the experience of menstruation when they're trying to defend our homeland from terrorists. So it was just like, speaking of things that we're still dealing with today, like given that our bodies continue to be our bodies, here we are.
But what's also interesting is that was included, that particular phrasing, I mean, that story. So why would that be included? And we're assuming that men were in charge of compiling the stories. Is it anti-feminine, anti-women?
Probably. No,
I
I mean, it's pro-women.
The way that I read this, and because we're at the end of our time, I'll provide my interpretation. We'll close the Zoom portion of our learning, and then we'll continue the post chat from there. That this is highlighting the tragedy of the love of Jacob and Rachel. They're like, it's like a great romance, and it's a tragic romance, because they meet, they immediately fall in love. He's like, I'll work for you for 7 years. It seems like the blink of an eye. And then he marries a different sister, and then he has to work 7 more years. And now he's in a whole like crazy trap that he can never get out of, so like, and then after that, the unloved wife is the one that bears all the sons, and the loved wife can't even have it, and it's like, and then when Jacob is finally like, I got to get my family out of here, he gets chased by his father-in-law,
uncle.
Oh gosh, so this is where I gotta trace his
Rebecca's
right?
But also,
Laban
it's his father-in-law, his uncle, and his father-in-law.
Yeah,
that's true.
So okay, so we have these more than one relationship at a time.
Yeah.
But so he gets chased by his father-in-law, who's also his uncle, and then he says this thing like, if anyone with whom you find your God shall not remain alive. It happens that Rachel has the gods but is not found, and then spoiler alert, she tragically dies in childbirth. And it's like, oh, heartbreaking. So that's how I see that the story is included, to just be like, wow, these were great people, and their life just unfolded in a really rough way. Because
were they great people? Look at all the wine and cheese.
No,
I mean, it's a question. We could debate that.
Well,
we could
Jacob is very
have a debate
ethical.
about that.
Jacob is very ethical. I mean, this story, to work like that. Oh no, I forgot about the rest. He's thinking about the working hard for
I agree with all those things and all the sides of the issue, but the thing that's a mystery is why she took the idols in the first place. And secondly, she's sitting on them. So she's, it's just something you do with a sacred object, right? So she's sitting on them. Whether or not she had her period at the time or not, we don't know. Maybe she did, but she said she did. So why did she take them? Because
she took them because she wanted them, or because it was an insurance policy for her. It was an insurance policy for her. She was going to get
Why would that be?
It gave her negotiating power.
But
I'm not sure that the Torah actually says that. In chapter 31, verse 19, we read, meanwhile, Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's household idols. It does not say why she did that. So we have a comment. So, all right. So the above the line comment, Rachel stole. The text clearly describes her act as thievery.
Look at the
below the line. Although Rachel
Yeah.
probably took the teraphim because she believed in their power, I feel like that's quite an assumption. The sages credit with her with taking them to prevent her father from continuing to worship them. Also kind of an assumption.
Yeah, that's weird.
The thing that we know is that she stole them. They were not hers, she took them.
It's interesting because it really denigrates her.
Do we know, like, would it have been like a clay statue or metal, or do we know they're gold? Do we know how big they are? Do we know?
They can't be real big about sitting on them.
Could be stone, could be gold.
It wasn't
Could be gold. But he was wealthy, maybe they were gold.
I will say, it doesn't say in the Torah.
It has to be small enough
And
for her to
that's
sit on.
that's why we have the commentary, and that's why we have the above the line, the below the line, the archaeological, the historical critical, and so we don't know. We don't know exactly what these household gods were from the text of the Torah, but that's why we have commentaries and we figure it out. Okay, since we're all over time now, so I'm going to say goodbye to these Zoomiverse portion. There's actually no one joining us on Zoom.
They might
but yeah, this is 8 learning. Okay, so peace out, y'all. See you next week. Bye.